What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by the one, the only AC, and of course the great Fitty Trent. We are here to recap round one, April 17th, 2017 NHL action for the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are on these games today. We had 4 games and 4 games that went all the way. They went the distance. They went to overtime. Not only did we have 4 games that went to overtime, but we had comeback after comeback after comeback. And we're going to get into that a lot. We're going to get into AC's bets. We're going to get into AC's thoughts. We're going to get into Fitty Trent's deep thoughts on some of these matchups. And also my thoughts on what's going on in the NHL right now. We have some big, giant teams going down right now. And we'll definitely discuss that. What's going on, Jeremy? Jeremy is in the chat. He says his favorite moment of the day was the Maple Leafs beating the Caps. We will get to that at the very end of the video. We always start off these videos with the thing that happened the most recent. The thing that happened most recently, I guess, would have been the Ducks. Do you guys want to start with the Ducks versus Calgary, or do you want to start with Nashville versus Chicago? Because they pretty much end at the same time.
Let's go with Anaheim Calgary.
All right, so Anaheim defeats Calgary 5-4. I did not get to watch most of the Ducks and Flames and Nashville Chicago games because I was reviewing Raw, quite frankly. So I'll leave it up to you guys to basically discuss the ins and outs of this game. But basically what this means for the series is that the Ducks are up 3-0. It's going to be pretty much impossible for Calgary to come back. It's very rare that a team does, especially a wild card team against a #1 seed like we have here in Anaheim versus Calgary. But Calgary looked really good. They were up at one point 4-1. Anaheim scores 4 straight goals to take it, including 2 by Theodore. And finally, the man Perry comes up in the clutch and scores the goal in overtime. We were wondering where he was at, where was he at, and finally comes out of nowhere, scores that goal, gets 2 points in the game, +5 in this game, and leads the team to a victory. Calgary, on the other hand, did have a good effort, but you got to question, how did they let Anaheim come back in this game? Guys, what's your thoughts initially on this game? What happened to Calgary? How did they lose this lead? And is this more on the back of Anaheim's a good team, they found a way to win this game, or was it a collapse by the Flames? Let's start off with AC. We'll go to Trent, and then back to me.
Well, just watching this game, Calgary, you knew playing at home was going to be tough, which they were. They were kind of the typical Calgary team that we've seen in stretches of the season when they were playing well. Obviously, they get to the 4-1 lead, and then everything starts to break down, which I think they got a little complacent. But I think at the end of the day, let's give credit to Anaheim, because similar to Pittsburgh, I was saying this yesterday, Pittsburgh coming back against Columbus, Anaheim just won a completely different game than they won the first 2 games, showing that they can win different ways and get it done in the playoffs, and they look very strong. Something I'll point out was Matt Barkowski and Dave England were on, where Barkowski was -3, so that's pretty much your 3rd defensive pairing that you don't want on the ice, and all of a sudden they're playing a lot. Barkowski was on for 3 of the goals, and England was on for 2 of them, or at least -3, -2. At the end of the day, I think all of us were saying that, you know, Calgary has a bright future, but Anaheim's pretty built for this year in the playoffs, and they showed it. And that's it's a wild one to watch when a team comes back from 4-1, because we saw multiple goal comebacks today, but we didn't see a down 3 goals, I believe. Actually, was Ottawa up 3-0 at one point?
Yeah, Ottawa was up 3-0 at one point.
Okay,
yeah.
so you did see that, but not in – we saw that in more in the second period, where this was pretty much all in the third. They scored – you know, Anaheim started getting on the board. That late goal in the second by Theodore was huge to make it 4-2 going into the third, and then obviously they get 2 in the third, and then Perry and OT.
Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting game to watch for sure from an entertainment standpoint. I mean, during the first period, I thought excellent. This is finally the time that Calgary's really in the series. They're going to start making it competitive now. They were back on their home ice, and it was really good. They had finally found a way to solve Gibson. Sadly for them, the Anaheim Ducks run with two goaltenders, and not just Gibson, but they also have Jonathan Bernier. And Bernier really stood up to the task because Gibson, he had a very much of an off game. So once Bernier was in the net, it was basically lights out after that. I think that Bernier played so well in this game that I think he might deserve to play in Game 4. Just give Gibson a night off, If you even lose that game, then it's just 3-1, then you can go back with Gibson. There's really no harm in going with your backup for this one game. And the big thing that happened with the Anaheim Ducks this game that I found was they really got to Elliott, especially near that third period. I mean, after every single goal that was going in, I personally thought that the Nate Thompson goal should have been called off. It was a high stick. It was very close, right on the borderline of yes, it's a goal, or yes, no, it's not a goal. I thought no. Some other people thought yes. It was finally called a yes goal. And after that, you could definitely see that he was a little bit more upset with his team's play. The Shea Theodore goal that tied up the game, he thought that there was goaltender interference when there was actually nothing there that he really had anything to stand on. So they got in his head, and it really started to affect him in this game. So if Calgary wants to get back in the series, which it seems very unlikely, I mean, Elliott needs to really calm down and just focus on playing one game at a time now.
Yeah. Kev has a few comments. Being the Flames fan, he left it in the Twitter DMs. He said that he didn't agree that the third goal by Anaheim was a high stick. He thought it was a high stick, and it was called not a high stick. I didn't see it in the moment, so I don't know what happened exactly. But he was giving us the math with the 6'2" plus the 4 inches and all this stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Are you really going to blame that for the reason why your team lost? But he also pointed to the fact that their goaltending, Elliott didn't make one big save when he needed to do it. Only made 22 saves, 5 goals against, 27 shots on goal. Not good enough if you're a Flames fan. Not good enough if you're a Flames player. You expect better from your goaltending. And when you're up like this in a game, I know that teams, they just tend to kind of it's human nature to kind of take your foot off the gas pedal. And I know we constantly say, keep your foot on the gas pedal, keep it going, but it's just natural human nature to kind of sag back and be like, okay, we got this game. We're up this score. They're not going to come back. We believe in our defense. But Anaheim, like AC said, credit to them. They did come back. They did, try and win this game. They could have easily said, hey, we're up 2-0 in the series. Let's pack it in. Let's just wait till next game and we'll get him next game. But no, they didn't stop there. They pulled to Tom Brady. They were down, and they came back and they won. So credit to Anaheim, but also, Calgary, I think you expected better from both your defense and your goaltending to hold on to this victory. And I think every game where it's this big, where you're up 3 goals at any point, it has to be some sort of a collapse. It's not only the one team coming back. You have to give some credit to the collapse and some credit to the comeback. But overall, looking at the players that played really well, you look at Thompson, who had 3 points in this game, 4 hits, 2 blocks, also contributed in the faceoff dot. Theodore, who continues to impress me, had 2 goals as a defenseman. He looks like one of the brighter stars in these playoffs, kind of a relatively unknown player before the playoffs, kind of standing out. 2 goals. With the 2 points, +2, 5 shots on goal, 2 blocks. Corey Perry finally shows up, like I said, 2 points, +5, 2 shots on goal. Kevin Bieksa, again with another solid game, 2 assists, 2 points, +2, 2 hits and a block. Lindholm, 2 points. Raquel, +3 and 2 points with 4 hits. Actually, Nolan Ritchie, 1 goal and 1 point. A guy that I actually played lacrosse against. It was basically like a first liner midway through the season. And then he dropped down the chart and he wasn't really even playing at times. And he found a way to score a goal in this game. So Anaheim definitely got some contribution from their stars, but also players that haven't really been producing so far in this series kind of came out of nowhere. For Calgary, I thought that, Backlund, their centers continue to produce for them. That's a positive sign. A lot of them, Backlund, Moynihan, Bennett, those guys all got points in this game. TJ Brody, who I really like as a defenseman, got 2 assists in this game. Versteeg got a goal. Stone, goal. Brouwer, assist. Gaudreau, not his greatest game, still got an assist in this game. Giordano is somebody that's kind of been disappointing. He was a -1, but he did have an assist in this game. The guy that has been kind of impactful and has had a pretty good series is Furland. He was a -2 in this game and wasn't really his normal self, as by the stats. Of course, I didn't really watch the game. Barkowski, -3. Never been a big fan of him since his Canuck game days, so I'll kind of see that coming. And of course, like Kev said, Elliott didn't have his best game. Guys, any players there that stuck out to you in terms of good or bad performances?
Maybe not stuck out, but I wanted to say, I said this earlier, and Kev didn't really think it about Calgary, but I actually thought Anaheim after they were down, they've been plugging away, getting underneath the skin of Anaheim. You saw Ferdland take, trade it with Holzer. I guess they were only down 1 goal and they didn't score on the 4-on-4, but like Ferdland's supposed to be big time minute guy now. Obviously he's kind of the 3rd guy on that first line, but still, like, you just take a stupid penalty going toe to toe, 2 minutes for both people. That kind of slows pace. And that's 4-on-4 is way better for Anaheim, I believe, than Calgary. And then obviously you saw Perry going after Bennett. I think there was a little, Anaheim was getting under the skin of Calgary a bit.
No, for sure there, AC. And I have one question for all our Calgary Flames fans and all our hockey fans that know a lot about what's happening with the Flames roster right now. Where's Matthew Tkachuk in this series? I mean, yes, he had a great rookie season, but that's 1/2 of the entire season. The playoffs is the other half. And personally, I have not seen him show up in any one of these games in a positive way whatsoever. He seems to be trying to go after guys that are much bigger than him and have much more strength and more skill when he is trying to stand out. And besides that, he's really doing nothing. He's not even driving to the net. He's not even shooting the puck. What happened with Matthew Tkachuk? I mean, this was a guy that everyone thought would be possibly a Calder candidate because of how well he did with the Calgary Flames on their first line. So he has not been stepping up for them whatsoever. And also Dougie Hamilton, I found, has been really disappointing this series. Taking a lot of stupid penalties early on.
He's been awful, Trent.
Yeah, he's been taking a lot of stupid penalties that he just should not be taking. And
I agree with that announcement that ripped him to shreds while it wasn't on TV. I agree with him. And also Matthew Tkachuk, I just think it's we discussed this after game 1. I think he's just rookie. I think he's out of his element. You can play well in the regular season when it's not as intense, not as physical, not as fast. But once you get to the playoffs, it's a different game. We discuss, I've discussed that very much. And I just think, Tkachuk, we've seen it even to a degree. Matthews stepped up in this game. Even McDavid. I mean, the guy's never been in playoff hockey before. And it's just a different style of playing, right?
And at the end of the day, too, I feel that there's been a lot of surprises in these series, but I think all 3 of us kind of picked that saw this series going this way the whole time. Maybe not 3 games in a row, but still the way, close games, but Anaheim winning in the end. So no big surprises like some of the other series we're going to talk about. This has kind of been the one series where everyone's like, okay, Anaheim's going to have a very good chance to take this in less than 5. And, I think I said 5. It's going to maybe be 4, maybe 5. But, there's some teams that I believe that could come back from 3-0, but Calgary Flames aren't one of them, especially against the Ducks.
So we have the Night Traveler here. What's going on, bro? He asks, out of the 4 teams that are on the sweep menu, who's coming back in any of these series? And that is, I guess, Columbus, Chicago, Calgary.
Yeah, it's easy to say Chicago. Like, I don't know if I think they're going to make it close in the end because we've seen it in Vancouver that they've done it before. They didn't win Game 7, but they got to Game 7. And, it's going to be good to see. Nashville, well, obviously, we're about to talk about that game. They're playing unbelievable right now. I wonder if pressure somewhat changes in the sense, like if Chicago, I think the pressure's still on Chicago to make. So
you're saying, basically what you're saying is Chicago is the most likely, but probably not.
Not to like the most likely, but it is very hard. Obviously, we saw LA do it in 2014 when they went on to win the Stanley Cup against the San Jose Sharks. We saw it the Flyers that won. Like, I think it's so rare to do. But I think key, like we said, game 3, because, if they do win that one, now you're talking about a Nashville team that was up 3 games and then they lose one. I think the pressure kind of shifts to Nashville. Obviously, it's this whole series, it's been on Chicago, right? They won 3 cups with kind of their core players. They were first place in the West. But if they can get a win and kind of put some pressure, being like, okay, well, we won the last one. And that 4th win, we've seen it in any series in NBA as well. The 4th one is the hardest one to get. So we'll see. But if Chicago keeps playing like they are and Nashville keeps playing like they are, they're going to have no chance even to win game 4.
Jeremy agrees with you. He says Blackhawks will come back. Blaze HD says Toronto will lose in game 7. We'll get to them in a bit. He says, hello, everybody. Guys, who do you think will win the Washington-Toronto series? Blaze, we're getting that to the end. We're saving that again for the main course. That's the big game. Everybody cares about that, baby. Jeremy says, Blaze, I heard your dog is taking over your channel. I don't know what that has to do with anything. The Night Traveler says, babyface assassin Nylander tied the game today.
Yeah.
A lot of Toronto-Washington talk. Everybody wants to talk about that. Anyways, let's get into the next game, which is the almighty Chicago Blackhawks falling once again to the Nashville Predators, the 8th seed, the Western Conference, and the second wild card, 3-2 in overtime. It looked like Chicago was on their way back in this series and in this game, up 2-0 in the middle of the second period, or at the end of the second period, actually. In the third period, it's a different story. Nashville scores 2 in the third, 2 from Forsberg, actually. The man that Trent will say, if he was on Washington, maybe Washington would have won today. And also an overtime goal from an unlikely source. So looking at this game, we looked at this game and basically, I know AC thought that the Blackhawks were going to win this game. I was still leaning towards the Predators from what I saw in the first 2 games. And looking at this game, another comeback. I'm sure you guys didn't really pay much attention to it once it was 2-0. You kind of figured it was in the bag. Am I right?
Not really. I was kind of still watching it, just because I thought it would be maybe an entertaining
Well, considering
game.
the other games were on.
Yeah, I was flicking back and forth.
All right.
AC's talking up a storm, but his mic is muted, unfortunately.
No, I was saying I was watching this one like all the whole third period because I wasn't really a big fan of the Anaheim Calgary. I really wanted to watch this one. And watching this one, man, Chicago's got some issues. Like the whole third period, they couldn't even break out of their own zone. Now watching this series, by picking Chicago to be the Stanley Cup champs, more maybe a bit with their regular season. Besides their big stars, like some of those, third to fourth line guys were not very good. The Hartman, like Rasmussen scored the goal. They have a lot of no-name kind of like guys that have probably been in the AHL, right, Trent, the last couple of years?
Yeah, they have some no-names, but then again, some of their stars aren't doing too well either.
Well, no, and then Taves against Johansson looked really weak, right? And it's where we've come a long way when, after Taves won his third one, everyone's talking, who would you rather take to start your team, Crosby or Taves, right? I think that's talks kind of No, I know, but it was before Crosby won his
second Stanley Cup.
Second Stanley Cup. That was the talk because Taves did have 3 to Crosby's 1.
No, God, please, no.
Well, that's just the homer in you. We're never going to say a bad thing about the Penguins in your life, ever.
No,
Ever.
bro. What did the... Don't even compare.
Don't get Mitch started about Jonathan Taves and Sidney Crosby.
But I'm saying that was the comparison. That was the talk. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm much more of a Crosby fan than Taves, but that was the talk. And all I'm saying is, to this day, right now, in the present, that talk is way over. And yeah, he doesn't look very good out there. Hossa looks old. Panarin's invisible. Anisimov coming back from injury isn't great. Kane scored. Is this elementary school here, Mitch, or are we gonna talk hockey? Or are you gonna just press your little buttons and?
Oh, AC's rattled. See, his team's going down. This is
My
exactly
team. My
See guys, this is
My
exactly
team
what
is when I
happened.
put my own hard cash that I earn on games, and I was 2-2 today, so it's no big deal. But I'll be a fan of that team every time I put money on it.
Remember when this team won? It's the exact same thing that's happening right now. AC's getting all sour puss.
Well,
He's
let's
all
get
upset.
It must be nice to be a Penguins Pats fan
He's
or
all
what else?
upset.
Did you like the Bulls in the 90s too?
No, he
They
liked
were
the
great.
Lakers because of the
The
Kobe.
the Lakers. Yeah, what a good call.
Yeah. See, I'm a winner, so I gravitate towards winners, bro. That's
Yeah.
how it works. Ask Trent.
No, it's true. I mean, Mitch has chosen winners from the beginning until he hired me. That was his big mistake. I mean, that was the first loser that he got. But besides me, I mean, I am a loser, but not as much of a loser as the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, even though they had the lead 2-0 in this game at one point, did they ever really have control in this game whatsoever? I mean, Nashville still looked like they were dominating them, even though they were losing. I mean, as I said time and time again, put some traffic in front of Pekka Rinne. You did that for the first 5 minutes. That's great, but this is a 60-minute game. 5 minutes won't get you jack shit. Even if you're the Chicago Blackhawks, you're not going to be able to score enough goals to win the game. Not up against a team that is really pumped up at home with probably the loudest crowd that I've heard in a States-like franchise so far these playoffs. I mean, they were making noise from the very beginning of the faceoff all the way to the end of the game. Even when they were losing, they were still buzzed and excited. Carrie Underwood sang the national anthem. That's Mike Fisher's wife. I mean, everyone loved that. I mean, they were pumped. They were hyped. And you saw it in this game in all their players, especially Arvidsson. I mean, did you see Arvidsson when that goal was like almost being disallowed? And then they're like, no, it's a good goal. And he literally just stood on the bench and he was like screaming. It's like, you're acting like you're a child, like you're a fan watching this on the TV. You're there. You're in the game.
Trent.
He was just so excited. I mean, that's what the Chicago Blackhawks don't have. They don't have any excitement. But they did listen to us. They did add a little bit more of a grinder side. We said that they needed to add a little bit more of a grinder player. They put 2-2 back in the lineup. But one grinder player isn't going to win you a game. It got you close, but it did not win you a game.
Anyways, I'm going to have a hot take right here, guys. Hot take time, all right? This overtime in this series was the difference between Chicago winning the series and Chicago, wait for it, getting swept in this series. If Chicago would have won this game in overtime, that would have been the type of victory that a team, gets. They huddle around. They kind of take this win, and it creates a momentum for your team going forward. But now that they lost this game in such heartbreaking fashion, I feel like this series is going to end quick. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'll just say that I think Nashville has not been in this situation before, so we'll just have to see how they react. But they are the better team right now, no question. And Chicago, if Chicago keeps this up, there's no chance they even make it. They're gonna get swept, right? And it's Nashville looks good. If that's going to be the series, Nashville Blues too, that's going to be a great one. I could see each one of those cups beating the team that comes out of the kind of the Pacific Division, whoever that may be. If we're looking down the road there, but they still have a chance, one game at a time, right? We've seen it before. Every game has.
I'm not saying they don't have a chance, Adam. I'm just saying that's my prediction.
Well, no, and I'm an odds guy too. And it's like, it's only happened twice, or it's only happened like 4 or 5 times in the history of the NHL, 7-game series or whatever it is, right?
And what do you do if you're the front office? And I know we're not there yet, and we might not get there, but if you're the front office of Chicago and you have this team that goes 50-23-9, first in the West, and you get swept, do you think anything big will happen?
Well, I think they might eventually. Crawford's won them 3 cups, so it's tough. So I think they might even.
I want to explain something. I didn't watch the game until overtime. Can you explain to me how a goalie that saves 46 shots didn't play good?
No, I'm not saying he didn't play good, but that's what people will definitely go to, right? He wasn't the reason they lost. But at some point, Darling got them some big wins. At what point are you just like, we're paying this guy $5 million. We can probably get rid of him for maybe a prospect and just give the reins to Darling, who's going to be half the price. And that's only if they get knocked out or whatever. But yeah, there's going to be some changing. Like, just look at their roster. Hartman.
Is it time to trade someone big?
Yeah, but I would still keep Taves, Keith, and Kane and all those. But just look at their team. Maybe you might need to get, because look at this: Hartman, Caro, Kruger, Panic, Rasmussen. I think that Nick Schmaltz guy is so overrated too, playing with Taves. He doesn't look very good.
Do you think it's time to trade someone big so that they can fill this depth that they don't have?
Yeah, but what are you gonna trade? You're gonna trade Kane, and then he's gonna burn you for the next 5 years. You're gonna trade
Not
Taves.
Kane, but maybe a Seabrook or a
I was
Keith.
about to say a Seabrook, a Keith. Both those players have done nothing for this series, and both these guys are locked up for like $10 million for the next like 12 years in like their contracts. They're in like their 30s now, and it's time. Unfortunately, you gotta let go some of these players. Time to get the new guys in. You got Billy Polka right in the minors just to fill up those positions. You got some good prospects. You just don't have good depth in the prospect section. That's what they really need, and I think it's time for that. Not a complete rebuild, just a little bit of a retool.
Blaze HD, I don't know what's going on in the chat. He says, wait. He was talking about what year do you think the Canucks will win the Cup? Jeremy said 2098.
That's being generous. It's probably longer than that.
What else? He's talking about this RA Productions now has come into the chat. He says, I got him to join this stream. Guys, I do love streams now about baseball. If you guys want to join me, there's one tomorrow. What are you talking about? Can you let me know what you're talking about?
He wants us to watch baseball with him. He wants us to chill out, have a few beers.
Let me know what's going on, bro. We're trying to have this interactive conversation.
Yeah, but I guess we could do MLB postseason, but that's what, 182 games away?
It's 182
or
games
no,
away.
so I guess 175 or no, they play 162. So it's 140 away right now or something.
We are right there, guys. We're right there.
We're right around the corner. Yeah, but let's credit Nashville. Okay, a lot of this talk has been about Chicago and how they haven't been playing well, and maybe what's the problem with their team. They need to trade players, whatever. But Nashville is a team, again, I'll bring this up every single time we do a recap, a team before the season that was looked at as one of the favorites in the West. Now they're finally playing like it. And I think that might actually be what is happening right now. Do you guys not agree with me? Or is Chicago just not playing good?
Well, I think it's a good mix. I mean, I think Chicago's not playing good, but I think Nashville is playing very well. I mean, especially that line, as I said, of, Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson. They are really pumped up and fired up in this game and in this series, and they want to win it, and they want to go far. And it's the kind of thing where, by the looks of it, as, AC said, it looks like it might be St. Louis versus Nashville. And that's going to be a very good competitive series because that's both like things where they were kind of the underdogs, being said, in a way, and they've both been really turning it on and turning a lot of people's heads. So, I mean, either way, one of these teams might make it to the Western Conference, and in the Western Conference, anything can happen. I mean, everyone's super pumped up, and I mean, it's going to be exciting. I mean, I can definitely see Nashville going far now, especially if they have the confidence of knocking off the Blackhawks.
Yeah, I think it's more about Nashville playing well, but I still don't think they've kind of reached their peak, and then Chicago's just not playing what they did in the regular season. I know it's a different game, but still, we've seen enough Chicago games that we know this is not normally how they play. It seems just like they're getting frazzled when they have the puck. They can't move it. Nashville's on them right away. Credit Nashville for how they played, because I'm going to use that analogy a bit in the Washington-Toronto.
And I also think that the consistency.
A bit less in that. I feel like Nashville's better. I feel like Toronto's a team playing almost at
above their level.
Like above their level at their peak. I think Nashville's playing good, but I still think there's still another gear for Nashville. Because I think if you look at their team on paper, it's pretty deep.
I think Nashville is a team that has finally got some consistency and confidence in their goalie. I think they finally have gained confidence with each other. They've gained some momentum now. And like you said, I think they still have that gear. I think they're on the climb. Well, you look at like a team at Toronto, we're going to discuss in a bit, like you said, kind of like at their peak. But I don't think it's at their peak. I think it's just them playing so far above like their level. I think they're just playing so much better than they are. You know what I mean?
And you know what? A lot of times too, when that's the case, you got to credit the coaching too. So,
and I've been on the other end of these in other sports. New York Giants, so much above their level they're playing. That's like Toronto right now.
Yeah, and that's different though, because it's a one game game in the NFL. It's like, it's just any given Sunday, right? It doesn't matter. Well, you catch Brady on a bad day, they're gonna lose, and that's that's why they haven't won 8 championships, right? Because it's only one game.
Correct. All right, let's get to the next series, which is Ottawa versus Boston. Speaking of the Patriots, Boston Bruins, we're looking to make this a 2-1 lead. But Ottawa came out hot, led in the first period 2-0, got another goal in the second, 3-0 at this point. Boom, Boston, goal, 3-3. Third period, kind of a toss-up. Then we have the overtime where Ottawa scores, assisted by the laxer Kyle Turris. We have 2 goals in this game from Hoffman, one really nice breakaway goal. Really nice pass from Carlson, one of the highlights of the playoffs, the goal itself, like pass, then the goal and the move. He also got a power play goal in this game. Pasternak with a power play goal to basically tie the game up. And then we had the Bobby Ryan power play goal at the end, assisted by Kyle Turris. Looking at the stats for this game, Hoffman with the 2 goals, 2 points, 8 shots on goal. Probably one of the best players in this game. Again, Carlson looked like one of the best, if not the best, defenseman in the league in this game with 2 assists and that really nice pass. He did have a penalty, but he had 5 shots on goal, 2 hits, and 2 blocks. Brassard was improved in the faceoff dot, 18 wins, 6 losses. Fitty Trent will get on that very shortly. Bobby Ryan, 2 points. The man Turris with a point. He also had 4 penalty minutes, so kind of didn't play great until the end of the game. John Michael Lyles, Fitty Trent's favorite guy, with 2 points, led the way for Boston. Also, what else did we have here? Not much else, but I think one of the big storylines from this game that the studs of Boston didn't fall through. Bergeron didn't have a point in this game, had 4 shots on goal, had 2 hits, lost a majority of his faceoffs, which is shocking. Marchand had a penalty and 1 shot on goal. Chara -1. He did have 6 hits. Backus did have a goal in this game. Pasternak did have a goal in this game. But where was Bergeron? Where was Marchand? And I think that might have been the difference for Ottawa. You look at the goaltending. Andersen only had to face 20 shots, had 17 saves. On the other end, Rask did play pretty well, especially in the comeback with 28 saves and 32 shots on goal, giving up 4. So what are your guys' thoughts? Any performances that stick out? What are your thoughts on this series going forward? Was this a shocking result? Where are you guys standing on this game?
No, I liked Ottawa in this series since day one. I think the goaltending was a little subpar. Give credit to Ottawa getting out to a great start. Plus, we saw probably one of the best hockey passes in the history of the NHL. Saucer from Edline to right to the opposing blue line, lands exactly flat, and then Hoffman, unbelievable deke to score that one. Credit to Boston. They never give up, and that's what Boston does, especially in that stadium. And then in overtime, that Bobby Ryan did 2 things. He not only scored that goal, but he got Nash to punch him in the head, I believe. He was the guy that the punch was on, which is great for people that don't like the Bruins because everyone always says the Bruins get away with that stuff, but it was right in front of the referee. He just gets Bobby Ryan cross-checks him, and he just punches Bobby Ryan in the face. Nash did. On the power play, Bobby Ryan did a great job of getting that was more impressive on that play was Bobby Ryan getting that puck over to Turris when he had a guy on him, and then Turris feeding it right back. It was well-deserved. I think Ottawa's starting to hit its stride a bit. It's always tough. We saw all the teams today that lost their lead end up losing the 2-goal lead or whatever. And this was a team that they had a big lead. They were up 3-0. They go into overtime and they end up winning. I think that's a huge momentum going in now to Game 4. It's still going to be a 7-game series, I believe. It's going to go back and forth. There's going to be some puck luck for each team. and we'll see where it goes. But this was great for Ottawa, and I think Boston has to be a little worried going down 2-1, especially losing in their building on Boston Marathon Day, which I'm not saying that correlates, but like it's a big emotional day for them. And normally, like, Mitch, normally they're Boston as a whole, they're the city of champions, right? Or in our lifetime, in the last 20 years, right? How many championships they've won. It's crazy.
I don't think they're worried. I think they're looking at this and they're down 2-1. I think they think they can tie it up, and I think they're fine with that. I think that's where I'm standing. I think the guys in the locker room, the leadership there, I don't think they're worried. But you have a point with the Boston Marathon thing. You would think that might help them win a game, but I don't think they're necessarily worried. Trent, what did you think?
Well, there's a big thing that like we all kind of mentioned in our playoff preview that we haven't really hinted on yet. A lot of people, I think AC and I were the only people that picked Ottawa, and everyone else picked, Boston. And, you guys picked Boston because you thought the only
It was 50-50, Trent.
Exactly. It was 50-50, but, that's basically how it's all been. And you guys were really afraid on the Boston side. You guys were thinking that Erik Karlsson would have been the only player that would have shown up in this series. And after game one, you were right. Erik Karlsson was really the only player that showed up for the Ottawa Senators. But AC and I knew that they had a little bit more depth and they had a little bit more scoring power. And you really saw them show up tonight. I mean, Hoffman, Bobby Ryan, they're really starting to turn on. If they can get Mark Stone up in the play, then they're going to be very, very red hot. And then that's when the Boston Bruins should start being worried. They're probably not worried yet. I agree with you there, Mitch. It's still 2-1. I still think that this will be a game of a long game, 7-game series. But honestly, it was a good effort by Ottawa, and I really like what I saw, and I like what I'm seeing going forward in the series.
And Mark Mathot coming back, playing with like half a finger, has played very well defensively. He's not going to do anything for you offensively, but I think he played over 20 minutes and was pretty solid out there from what I saw.
Mm-hmm. No, he had a good game. He definitely had a very good game. He was one of the most underrated players out there.
But you know what? If you go, I think some of these names too, like Pasternak had a good season, and he's been all right in the playoffs, but we've seen a lot of these younger players not show up yet. Like even like Panarin for Chicago, and then when you're just looking at their team, if you look at Ottawa's team, it's not that bad. And with Boston's problem on the D end right now, they have a lot of injuries. Like I said before, you have a guy that's just played his third game in the NHL, logging almost 25 minutes of ice time, McAvoy. It's tough. They have some real big issues with their defense right now.
Oh, they do, but I don't know. I just see this series as kind of like it's kind of like a heavyweight fight to me. Like, I don't think these teams are quite at that level where they're both great. I think these are two of the weakest teams in the playoffs, to be quite honest with you. But I think it's kind of like one shot from one team, one shot from the other. I think these teams are too balanced. I don't think any team in this series is going to just run away with it. You know what I mean? I think this series was meant to go for a while. Yeah. I think it was meant to go 6. It was meant to go 7 games, So we'll see what happens. Both teams have their issues. Boston showed their defensive issues tonight. And when those players like Bergerons of the world don't show up, this is what happens. They get behind early and they end up losing. They did fight back. They did almost come back. They almost got a little lucky there, but they didn't quite get the victory.
If it went back and forth, I would say it's even, but I'll just give the Senators the edge just because they lost the first and won the next 2 in overtime. So I think they do have that edge, not only being a game up, but, winning the last 2. If it went, they won, Boston won, they won, I think it wouldn't really matter.
Every game has been close, though.
Oh, for sure. And then that other game, the first game should have gone in. That was actually Boston, I didn't think played that great. That was probably their worst game they played was game 1, and then they had a great third period, and then Marchand scored with like 2 minutes left. But no, it's going to be. I think I picked it going 7 games, and I won some money too by betting on Ottawa, which was great. And they were underdogs, so I won a little extra.
Trent, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I think you guys covered it pretty much. I was just looking at the injuries in Boston. They have a lot of injuries on defense right now. Carlo, they have Hayes, Krug, McQuaid, Bolesky. These are all your defensive guys. Colin Miller. I mean, basically you're putting up AHL guys right now. So that is definitely going to be something that you have to look at going forward in the series, because it's going to be hard to come back with a bunch of AHLers.
So Trent, I just said I thought you need to say something, and then you end up saying something. So for that, I'm gonna give you this.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Let's get. I can never shut up. Come on.
Okay, let's get to the comments because we have a lot of them, and I haven't really looked at it lately. Night Traveler says Nashville's goalie is keeping them going. B Gain says, isn't Oshie a UFA this upcoming offseason?
He is.
He is. Okay. Blaze says this is the best season he's ever seen Rene play. RA Production says, do you think PK was a good trade, or do you think it changed the team? I guess in a negative way. Right now, I would say it was a good trade.
I think it was a good trade for both teams. I think
that's what I thought at the moment. That's what I still think.
Yeah, they're two different players, but I do think PK maybe brought a little bit of energy, because we know Weber obviously on the ice seems like he could change the energy of the game. But I think in the locker room, you bring a guy like PK who seems, like a jokester, where Weber just seems more like he just likes to go about his business. And we'll see, because where did Nashville get with Weber? Obviously, they had some good seasons, but I don't think they were up 3-0 against Chicago any one of those seasons. So maybe, you have to kind of point to that PK. And obviously PK's logging, 25 minutes with Yossi. And Yossi's just been getting better. People thought Yossi was going to maybe not play as well after losing Weber, but he's been really decent. And even guys like Irwin, they do seem very solid now. 6 good defensemen and 12 solid skaters, plus Rene, who, 3 years ago was probably the best goaltender in the league, 3 to 4 years, and then he kind of dropped off, and now he's back to playing what everyone knew he was capable of. It's funny, I'll pick Chicago, but the recipe's looking very good for Nashville at this moment.
You're still sticking with Chicago?
No. I picked Chicago. I'm not I can't be an idiot. I said it'd be great just for the bracket or whatever. But at the end of the day, I can't discredit what Nashville's doing. I might jump on the bandwagon if they beat Chicago for sure. They're my new pick.
I find it interesting with just one more comment on PK. I find it interesting that this playoff series so far, he's been playing decent, but he hasn't really stepped up. He hasn't been that big.
Well, he hasn't scored.
He hasn't scored offensively. He's not been the PK that we usually see him on the ice. So it's the kind of thing where, it will be interesting to see when he turns on how much better the Nashville Predators will be on. Because when PK is playing very well,
maybe Trent, or maybe he's just taking a different role. Maybe he's not being asked to be that guy that he was in Montreal. Remember in Montreal a couple seasons ago, he was their offensive guy. Him and Pacioretty were their offense.
Yeah, basically.
In Nashville, maybe he's being asked right now to do something a little bit different than he was asked in Montreal. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not the coach, but that may be something. I don't know. Pantera says, let's go Ducks. I told you so. 3-0 in the series. Flames suck. This is the Ducks' year to win the cup. Night Traveler says, why was Nash crying in the interview?
Well, because he just thought he lost the team the game. That's a call that you don't really see a lot. But it was kind of blatant. It wasn't just a face wash. It was during play. And it was he was down on the ground, I think, and he reached up the punch. So it was really noticeable. But it was obviously he knew. It's just, you can't be doing that in overtime. And normally that's the thing. Boston normally gets away with stuff like that. We've seen it firsthand, but not that time.
How are there 12 people watching this right now? It's 2:20. It's 2:30 in some places.
That's okay, man. That's how dedicated our bottom line viewer fans are.
That's what I'm saying. That's freaking awesome.
I know. Those people that are watching us right now, you're killing it. You're the GOAT. You're the greatest of all time. Pat yourselves on the back.
You're the Matt Cullen of live chat.
They're better than Matt Cullen, all right? I'm saying it right now.
Wow, that's bold. Well, if you're Radulov, you're a Russian god, so that's pretty
Yeah.
That's true.
Hunter says Flames are done. Blaze says Ducks will get knocked out in the second round if they make it. Jeremy argues no, the Ducks will go far. Packer says Predators look strong. Hunter Adam says, I think Ducks will get knocked out in the second round. Ooh, some argument over the Ducks. Blaze says, if Anaheim and Nashville versus in the semifinal, Predators will win. Jeremy says it's 224. RA Production says, what are your top 5 biggest hits of the playoffs? I don't know.
I couldn't remember them all. I like that Cassian one on, was it Dylan in the first game? Or no, second game. When Dylan was trying to break out or something and Cassian came out of nowhere and hit him.
Yeah. I remember that one.
Oh, and today we haven't got to Washington, Toronto, but there were some really good hits in that one as well. Like Kadri throwing his body at Orpik. Orpik actually got hit a little bit, but obviously Orpik gave it back a bit. But yeah, Toronto was flying today and had some really big hits. And that's what's good about Toronto. It's like you have guys now that aren't like power forwards, but they're quick skaters and they got big bodies that they're throwing them around, like a guy like Kadri. Even I saw Bozak make a couple hits as well.
Who do we think will win tomorrow, Rangers or Canadians?
Canadians.
Rangers.
Based off last game, it's in New York.
Yep.
I gotta go.
Rangers are the worst team at
the
home.
way that the Canadians played last game, I gotta go with the Canadians. I'm going with Canadians. Adam's going with Canadians. Trent's going with the Rangers because he needs them to win. What else? Matt says, my Wild waste a playoff spot every year. LOL.
Become a Penguins fan, Matt. Become a Penguins fan.
That's what happened with Mitch. He was a Canucks fan for years, and then he just went to the Penguins.
I was a what?
And
You
it's
were a
way
Canucks
better.
fan.
No, I was a Penguins fan since like I was really little. I was both, but
Because those 2000 teams were just awesome to watch.
no, I liked Lemieux. I know Adam finds it hard to believe, but
No. I respect it. I just like it. It keeps me sane to just a couple chirps here and there about it. But
I
it's
mean,
still nice.
I'm not
At the end of the day,
gonna
you can be
say
like,
that I didn't like the Canucks more when the Penguins sucked. Obviously, I did because the Penguins sucked. But my favorite player was Lemieux. So,
no, and I liked actually that. I remember that Penguins. I used to play the Penguins in NHL, like the late in his career, obviously. Like
Morozov. And,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like
Peter
Martin
Jackman on the defense.
and like Martin Straka.
yeah. Martin Straka, Gonchar, those boys.
Got Milan Kraft on the third line. You know, it's great.
Kraft, that's a good one. Fata. Nobody.
Yeah. Mike
Nobody will know
Eastwood.
that.
How can we forget?
Malone. Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, Malone, man. Oh man, and then he went to Tampa Bay, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Ryan Malone. Yeah, that team was. I gotta look up that roster. It's actually not bad. I might be a fan of it. I don't know. Maybe I should.
Somebody says I like your T-shirt. I don't know if it's me, if it's Trent, if it's Adam.
It's definitely not me. It's a Canuck t-shirt, so it's definitely not me.
It's probably me then. Because
Well, people are going with
you're
my.
not wearing a T-shirt unless
People
you're
are
looking
people
at
are liking the
jersey.
jersey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a dope jersey. Why aren't you a Ducks fan?
I've always liked the Ducks. I'm a Canucks fan, and they're in the same division. I'm not gonna lie. My favorite movie of all time is the Mighty Ducks franchise. And when the Canucks weren't very good, when they first made it to that Stanley Cup, I was a big Ducks fan then, or was a big cheer for them. I cheered for them when they won the Cup. I'll cheer for them. And I made my picks at the beginning of beginning of the playoffs. And I have Edmonton beating the Ducks in the next round, but the Ducks have shown me something in this Calgary series that I'm not going to be cheering against them.
What do we have here? Hawks have plenty of cups, though. I don't know if they care much anymore. We actually discussed this a couple of videos ago. Is this a factor? Are the Blackhawks just simply not trying as hard as other teams because they don't have the same passion as these other teams?
I think they're probably just a little bit too relaxed. I don't think it's that like they don't care. It's just like they're relaxed because they're like, we've been here before. We've been back in the series. Don't worry about it. But that relaxing, it's definitely biting them in the ass in some aspects, yes. So are they just too calm about it? No, but they're just kind of relaxing. They're just trying to like glaze through the playoffs. They're not pushing themselves night in and night out.
I had money on the Hawks to win the cup, says Packer.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Which D-man do you think Toronto targets in the free agent market? We have so many freaking comments.
Carl Alsner would be a good one. Kevin Shattenkirk, if he's willing to go. I mean, I think he's going to New York, though. But if he's willing to go to Toronto, that would be a stud guy to put with Riley.
Yeah, and if Toronto wins this series, they're going to have to thank Shattenkirk for how bad he's playing right now.
Pretty much.
Jeremy says his favorite hit was Tanner Glass on Shea Weber.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
We also have a comment, is Washington in trouble? And that will lead us into our next conversation. Washington versus Toronto. Toronto takes it 4-3. Again, a comeback. 2-1 in the first period for Washington. Then we have, it's a small comeback, but I think it was it 3-1?
It was 3-1 at one point.
Yeah, it was 3-1.
Yeah, so it was a 2-goal comeback.
And
then we
then
had Toronto score 2.
there was that big save. Andersen made that big save against Kuznetsov that would have made it 4-1, and then they go down and score right away.
Yeah.
Which was huge.
And then so it's 3-3. No goals in the third period. Overtime comes, and Tyler Bozak scores the goal, assisted by Kadri and Riley. Got goals for Washington: Backstrom, Ovechkin, Kuznetsov. All their top players scored. Toronto: Matthews, Kadri, Nylander, Bozak. Again, same story. No grinders here. All the top players scored, including one Auston Matthews, who I said would score a big goal.
Yeah.
That big goal wasn't the overtime. It was the first period goal, but their first goal of the game, which they desperately needed. Because if they went in that first intermission down 2-0, it would have been a lot rougher to come back than 2-1, where you figure you're still in the game and you're not, too far out of it. So looking at the stats here, Washington. This is the game that I watched the most. Washington, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points for Backstrom, 14 wins in the faceoff dot compared to 9 losses. Oshie, 2 assists +1, only 1 shot on goal. Interesting enough. Ovechkin, 5 shots on goal, 4 hits, 2 blocks, 1 goal. Had one of his best games of the series. Kuznetsov, 1 goal. What else we got? Schmidt was a +2 with an assist, same as Justin Williams. Carlson didn't do anything on the stat sheet. Other than that, everybody was else pretty quiet. On the negative side, we look at the teaming or the pairing of Orpik and Shattenkirk, who are -2. I did think that Lars Eller, even though he was a -1, played pretty well in this game.
He cost them, though, with the penalty in overtime, though.
Yeah, that does suck. But I thought that during the regulation, he was pretty good.
I would agree with that, too. He was noticeable in a positive way.
Yeah. For Toronto, 1 goal, 1 assist for Auston Matthews, 6 shots on goal, 3 assists. Easily his best game, easily his most noticeable game, and impactful game. Kadri continues to play really well for Toronto. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 6 hits. Riley, again, continues to play really well. And again, I continue to become more of a fan of him. 2 assists, 2 points, +2. Did have a penalty. 3 shots on goal, 2 hits, 2 blocks. Filled up the stat sheet there. Bozak with the game winner. Nylander, who I'm also a big fan of. He's growing on me as well. +2, 1 goal, 3 shots. Who was the guy that came back? Zaitsev came back in this game. -2, easily the worst player on the ice for Toronto. We'll get into him in a little bit. Andersen, 23 saves, 26 shots. And for Holtby, continues to not play like you would think he would play. 24 saves on 28 shots. Guys, who was negative? Who was positive? What did you think of this game? I thought it was really exciting. Back and forth game. Yeah. Great game to watch. Probably my favorite game of the day. And it was awesome to see Toronto win. I know it wasn't for you, Adam, but
Well,
I obviously hate Washington. I obviously hate Washington, so there's that. But also just seeing a team like Toronto win on home ice, that atmosphere was electric. Can't wait to go to a game when I'm in Toronto. That will be a lot of fun. Hopefully they're still good. They should be. We'll see. But Toronto 4-3 in this game. Again, electric game, really fast paced, back and forth, odd man rushes after odd man rushes, back and forth hockey, skating, not a lot of, I would say, zone time. It was a lot of time spent on the rush. A lot of teams just 3-on-2, constant 4-on-3, like shot. Big opportunity offensively after big opportunity. Quite a few penalties in this game. Washington, again, their power play. They didn't score in this game. Actually, Toronto did, but I felt like they had their fair share of opportunities in this game. Washington took one too many penalties in the third period. That could have been one of the bigger storylines here. Eller had a penalty. Wilson had a penalty. Beagle had a penalty. Shattenkirk, again, that guy, had a penalty. But Toronto early on in the game had 4 penalties compared to Washington's 2 in the first 2 periods, and Washington kind of evened it out in the third. I think it kind of went the way in terms of penalties on who had the puck more. The first and second period, Washington had the puck more. They got more opportunities. Toronto had the puck more in the third. They got more opportunities in the box. I thought it was a really fun game to watch. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and getting back to the penalties thing, they let these guys play. There was a lot of calls that they could have made in this game, big time, and for both teams. That's why it evened out that way. Washington started the game really well. Ovechkin on the forecheck was good, was hitting. They get those 2 goals, and then that Matthews goal, if we look at it, great play by Matthews to keep the puck, but he shoots it, it goes off one defenseman's stick, hits the other guy in the face, and then drops right on Matthews' a tape to score that one. You look at the other one that hit off like 4 guys to go in. So there was some puck luck for the Leafs, but the Leafs, what they impressed me the most is they just look a lot faster. There are times where Washington has a hard time even breaking out, and even when they do, there's always a Maple Leafs forward like right behind on the back check, which that impressed me. I still think when it comes to the goaltending, it wasn't necessarily Holtby's fault, but Andersen has been outplaying Holtby, and we talked it on the Puck It podcast. What I thought Holtby this season was one of the better goaltenders, and I think he was starting, with playing in the Olympics. Not, he didn't get to play that much, and then the World Cup. He's starting to become like, Canada's, second goaltender to Carey Price, kind of surpassing Luongo now. He's not playing that great. Kunetsov actually had a really good game, and I thought he's been kind of lacking. But when you look at their third and fourth line, like that Wilson line compared to the Leafs' fourth line, where you notice Boyle and even Martin, and then also Kapanen, they scored, that line got 2 goals the second game. But like they're outplaying sometimes the second line of the Washington Capitals. And we've talked about it where I think that the Leafs are playing on a level that is kind of almost the best they can play at, not the best they can play at. And Washington hasn't really played their game. Like look at that 5-on-3. And Shattenkirk, who they brought in, only had 1 shot on net and probably had about 8 attempts and missed the net every time, where, they were even saying on the broadcast, normally those are shots that he's just putting in. He's got precision with that shot. He was just missing. Great on Toronto. It's going to be a great series. I think it's now going to go 7 games. But, Toronto's really impressed me. And, if they don't go far in the playoffs this year, they're definitely going to be very good because their team is full of guys that are, 1, cheap, and 2, young, that they can build something super special there. And it's, picking Washington to go all the way to the finals, it's tough. But I'll give credit to the Leafs, but I still think Washington has a chance here.
No, Washington absolutely has a chance here. I mean, there's just a few players that aren't playing their best. You still see a little bit of like nervousness. You still see a little bit of jitters. I mean, Holtby, yes, he's not been having his best season. As we kind of hinted on, Kevin Shattenkirk really has had a terrible series, to be completely honest. He's, as you said, he got one shot on the net and like 8 or 9 missed opportunities. And it's the kind of thing where, believe it or not, Kevin Shattenkirk still has not gotten his first goal in a Washington Capitals uniform. Since he's been traded, he's not gotten a single goal. And his contract's coming up at the end of this year. So I think Shattenkirk's kind of more focusing on, I need to score a goal, so I need to throw a lot of really shitty shots at the net because I need to get that goal because I need to get a good contract next year. He's
I'll say this, Trent. The only thing that Shattenkirk has done well is getting shots to the net.
Yeah, and most of them have missed. Like, that's just the thing.
And you also look at Washington's defense, and this has been their biggest issue, their defense. And I thought it was their biggest issue last year in the playoffs when they played Pittsburgh as well. But I just feel like this year, they have so many offensive defensemen. It's kind of imbalanced. And then the defensive defenseman that they have in like a guy like Brooks Orpik, he's old and he's slow and he can't keep up to these younger guys. Do you guys see that as well?
No, for sure. I mean, I think you nailed it right on the head. Besides Brooks Orpik, I guess the only really other maybe defenseman they have is Niskanen, but I've always considered him more of a two-way defenseman personally.
Yeah.
So it's just the kind of thing where, yeah, they need that good balance of defense. I find that Washington always is just going to go all out on offense and forget about defense as a second priority, not get a good balance.
Yeah, and you know what? But we did a review of one of the Capitals games, and I was saying how I did like the depth of Washington because during the season, I think that's what helped them out was that depth because you don't have – an AHL defenseman on that like other teams do for their 5th, 6th defenseman. They have 6 guys that have experience in the NHL. I like where Orlov is headed. Niskanen and then Carlson. I think Alzner not playing hurt them a bit because I do think Alzner's a guy that can eat up a lot of minutes defensively and stop guys.
I think they actually made that decision. I feel like this injury is
instead, I think.
I feel like this isn't an injury. I feel like this was Washington saying Alzner's not playing well. We're going to put this guy in. Am I the only person that said that, like, feels that way?
Yeah, but I mean, I'd rather have a Carl Alzner than a Nate Schmidt.
But that's what I'm saying. This, I think Washington looked at their game and they said, our defense isn't playing well. We need to shake it up. Let's put Schmidt in.
That's probably it.
Yeah, and Schmidt was at some points, good on the offensive zone, but like even Toronto was pretty strong on the puck with a guy like Schmidt. Like you can't I don't think you can have this.
Exactly, right? They only have one big-bodied guy. Well, I guess 2 with Carlson.
Well, Carlson, I still
Carlson
think
and Orpik are
one of
big
my
bodies.
favorite defensemen in the league.
Yeah, but you look at Orlov, you look at Schmidt, Niskanen. All these guys are small, right?
But I'll give credit to Niskanen because even though he's kind of average.
Niskanen is good. Don't get me wrong. Niskanen is good.
Because he played for the Penguins, right?
No, he was good, but he got way overpaid when he went to Washington.
Well, for sure, and what you do, right? And that's always
he's been good with Washington for the most part.
Yeah, and
I like Orlov too, but I just feel like they're again, like Trent said, too offensive minded in a way, and I think that Toronto's kind of capitalized on their aggression. They've I think Babcock got in their mind that okay, if these guys pinch, we're going to be ready to go on the on the 3-on-2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I think a lot of these series too, the teams that are up, it's always about play, but it's also I think sometimes they just the other coaches gets outcoached. I think it's happening in Montreal against New York. I think it's happening Nashville, Chicago, even though Joe Quenneville's a great coach. I think it's happening in a lot of these series where these coaches and their matches, because we saw sometimes even Babcock put that 4th line out against like sometimes the 2nd line of Washington, and they were shutting them down. Like it's it's like what we saw with
4th line for Toronto's playing really, really well.
Well, and it's like what we saw with Montreal. It's like Toronto's actually running 4 lines too, like quite accurately.
I think we didn't actually give enough respect to Toronto's depth forward in their forwards. I mean, their defensive depth isn't the greatest, but they've outperformed what they're supposed to, and they're definitely scoring goals. So,
well, I think one thing Babcock realized too, he's just gonna run Gardner and Riley, right? We'll see, because I think they can take it for at least a 1 to 2 series, and I think that's kind of the plan. But they're playing pretty much every second shift and doing well, and not getting tired, right? There's a couple times when Riley got out of position, had to back check, and it just took him like 5 strides to catch up to a forward, right? Like it's pretty amazing watching those guys skate.
Yeah, it just seems like, I don't know, because I tweeted this out before the game started. I said, if the Capitals don't come out with some urgency, they're going to find themselves in a hole that they can't get out of. But even they came out with urgency. They went up 2-0, and was it 3-0 too? And then, or 3-1?
Oh, yeah, it was 2-0 until,
and then 3-1.
Yeah, then 3-1.
And then they just lost it. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. If Washington, I saw 3-1. Okay, Washington's regained the stranglehold of the series. No, Toronto fought back. Big shift. There was a huge turning point in this game. Big shift from Kadri. Smokes somebody in the corner. Causes a big turnover. They get the puck. They score. Auston Matthews, or that was earlier, but another goal that they had, and it was just huge, like a huge spark to their team where one of their just grinder lines, like we were talking about with Chicago, which they don't have right now, one of their lines with those grinders and those hardworking guys went out there, laid the body, got the crowd into it, gained some momentum for their team, especially in the home crowd, and they regained the momentum.
You know what Toronto kind of reminds me of now that I'm like thinking of their team, like line by line? They kind of remind me of Tampa Bay, like how Tampa Bay likes to stack their lines. They kind of like to run with the 4 lines, get the really big guys. They know Brian Boyle, that's who Toronto got him off of. And they like to run the 4 lines. They like to have the big bodies. They like to stack their defense in the way that Mike Babcock's been doing. So I kind of think that they've taken kind of maybe a page out of Tampa Bay Lightning's book and kind of used it to their advantage.
And when it was 3-1, there was this big point in the game where it was 5-on-3. It looked like it was going to be 4-1 because 5-on-3 with the Capitals power play. No way Toronto survives this. Toronto survives that, and sometimes being on the penalty kill can give you some momentum, right, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and that's what it was. Like it was a full 2 minutes of 5-on-3. And that's what I saw with Shattenkirk. We're talking about those missed shots. A lot of those missed shots were just like wrapping around and then going out, and they couldn't stop it. Like it wasn't even like a dump by the Leafs. It was just, a bounce off the stanchion that would kick around the boards, and they wouldn't be able to get it. And then they'd have to regroup, and then Shattenkirk would miss again. Mm-hmm. But the only thing we'll say, I guess, 8 team. I'm reading here that there hasn't been many 8-seeded teams. The 2006 Oilers were an 8 seed that made it all the way to the finals.
The LA Kings.
Are we actually talking about Toronto going to the finals?
Well, no. I'm just talking like the way they're playing. It's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
They're an 8 seed, but I would tell you this. This might be my hot take, but I think Columbus is the worst team in the Eastern playoffs right now.
I think
so. even going in the beginning. Trent, back me up a bit.
No, I agree. Especially now. I mean, now Columbus, when they were talking about who's the most likely to come back from the sweep, Columbus is definitely out now because they're missing their number 1 guy who's actually given a shit other than Sergei Bobrovsky and Zach Werenski. Zach Werenski put his
I just
face
think
on
Pittsburgh's
the line.
that good.
Pittsburgh is that good, but Columbus has not been showing up whatsoever. They showed up a little bit last game, but too little too late. And with Zach Werenski out, it's over. You're not getting back in the series at all.
But I just say like maybe they're like kind of like the Rangers where they don't have scoring for the playoffs, right? Like who are their goal scorers?
Maybe it's the matchup. Maybe Columbus doesn't match up well with Pittsburgh. Maybe Toronto matches up well with Washington.
And you know what?
Nashville matches up well with Chicago.
And that's why I think Pittsburgh always beats Washington, is because I think Washington has trouble with speed. I think they're good against these big teams, and I think. The thing with Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh is good against these bigger teams that try to hit you because of their quickness. So, I think the Leafs Pittsburgh would be good because Pittsburgh hasn't really seen the Leafs that much in a playoff atmosphere. Because I do think they have the Caps number if it gets to that point. But I think against a bigger team, like you said, the matchups, Pittsburgh is doing better against Columbus because I think that matches up well. And I think watching these games, the Leafs just look way quicker. Even if the Capitals were playing well, they just seem a lot faster, better skaters. So that just makes it so when you're not getting those chances, the Leafs are at least creating something with their speed. When Washington isn't creating, I don't think they have that speed to kind of like change in an instant. Like they need to score on the power play. They need to hit. They need a forecheck. They need to get some greasy goals, which they're just not getting.
No, I agree with that. I think Toronto's been the faster, quicker team. They've been to the pucks first. They've been getting the better opportunities. I agree with that. Totally. Trent?
No, I agree. I mean, like, I think you guys have all nailed it on the head. And honestly, you know, like Washington, it's not unrealistic to think, we've kind of been hinting on it like the past few days, Washington might be done in the series. I mean, it's still 2-1. There's still plenty of room for Washington to come back. But, I mean, looking at the team right now, it's not unrealistic to think that the Toronto Maple Leafs can make a second round appearance.
Do you think it's more likely that Washington – is it more likely that Washington falls apart or they find it within themselves to win, let's say, 3 in a row?
That's going to be tough. I can definitely see them falling apart, to be completely honest, just because Mike Babcock, I think, has been doing an excellent job with the way that he's been running the lines. And
so do you think, Trent, that let's say next game Washington comes out, do you think they'll be frustrated from the jump, or do you think they'll be calm?
I think some people will be frustrated. Like a Tom Wilson will be frustrated. But besides that, I don't see anyone else being overly that frustrated and that passionate, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think Washington will get off to a good start, and I think if they get the lead, I don't think they're gonna blow a 2-goal lead twice again, right? So
no, that shouldn't happen.
Like, we'll see. It's
going to be really interesting.
I can see
Toronto. This game's in Toronto again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but at what point does it switch over where it's like, I guess it's never going to do that. No, I'm just saying, like,
what, you think it's going to be like Rocky IV where the Toronto starts cheering for Ovechkin?
Yeah, that'd be epic. That'd be epic. No. It's been fun to watch that Toronto team. Maybe it's just Washington's just getting old. It's just like maybe they are the.
I like how we're talking about the demise of Washington.
Well, no, but like, how many years can you win the President's Trophy, be the best team in the league, and then not do anything in the playoffs?
Is this the Canucks from a couple years ago?
No, but at least the playoffs. Oh, like at least the Canucks, like they'd for a time there, they at least won the first round.
No, but what about that year? What didn't they play the Kings and the Kings?
Yeah, that was 1 versus 8. Yeah, that was 1 versus 8.
We lost in 5 games or 6, something like that.
Yeah. Here you go.
It's gonna be interesting. I'll be following that for sure. But if Toronto wins, I would like to see Toronto Pittsburgh too. I would like to see Washington.
That'd be fun. I'd like to see anything Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry. Poor Washington. Poor Washington.
Great song.
But goodbye, Washington. Your time is over. No. Anyways, guys, I think that Washington still has a large chance to come back in this series, but 2-1 with Game 4 in Toronto. This is the biggest game of the series. Do we have a prediction for this game?
I got to just keep on going Washington until they lose.
I'll actually say, Washington ties up the series. It will be a very close game. I say that Washington will tie it up 3-2 in overtime once again, because every single game has gone into overtime. That's another huge issue.
That's true.
That every one of these games has gone to overtime. So you're just boosting the Toronto Maple Leafs' confidence.
This is backs against the wall, Washington. You have to believe that they're going to win this game.
You have to.
If they don't, they're done. If they don't, they're done. Seriously.
Oh, yeah. Like 3-1. And you know what? These 2-1 series, most of the time, I don't know the exact odds, but, most of the time, I think the team that ties it up to 2-2 goes on to win. because it's such a key
I have
game.
no idea.
No, I know, but because Game 4 is such a key game. So if whoever, if the team that's leading, they're up 3-1, they're probably going to win. But if the team that's down 2-1,
I think I'll say this: if Washington wins this game, it's going to go 7. If Toronto wins, it will go 5.
That's the thing. And Washington needs to win 1, obviously, in Toronto. Because they got to make it to be able to go back to
obviously because then they play. If they win in Toronto, they play in Washington. Then they can grab the hold of the series.
Because how I could see this setting up too is Washington losing, then winning, and then Toronto clinching in Toronto Game 6. That would be exciting.
Riot in the streets if that happens.
Jurassic Park.
Do you have your thought, Fitty? How many games? Who you got?
I'll say Washington will be able to pull it off, but I think it'll push the limits. It will go to 7. It will go all the way to 7. It will be interesting all the way throughout the entire series.
All right, guys. That's the Stanley Cup round 1, April 17th, 2017. Recap. Let's see if I can find a good goodbye here for you guys. What do I got?
I'm just hoping no overtime. Overtime's fun, but I'm hoping no overtime tomorrow too, because I want to start getting to bed a bit early this week.
The Pittsburgh Penguins will clinch tomorrow.
And that's the bottom line.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Bottom Line Views Round Run April 17th, 2017 recap of the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And guys, we would really appreciate it if you guys check out our account on gawkbox.com. It's a way to support the channel through playing games. Go to it on your phone. You can download the games on your phone, and you donate a little bit of money to the channel for us to continue to do what we love to do and what we love to give you guys, these live streams for you guys. I will post the link in the chat. It is in the description, so check out us on gawkbox.com. Play a game, donate a little bit of money, and you support the channel. Easy as that. Thank you guys for watching. It's Mitch, Trent, and AC. Peace out.